The giant hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human chair, watching as thousands of alien faces stared down at her. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with seats going up like a stadium. Each seat held a different alien species. Some looked like giant bugs, others like walking trees, and some were just floating balls of light. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center podium. He was tall and blue with forearms and eyes like black marbles. His voice echoed through the chamber as he read from a glowing tablet. "The final vote has been counted," Zethkri announced. 847 civilizations have voted. The result is clear. Humanity is expelled from galactic society. Sarah felt her heart sink, but she kept her face calm. She had expected this. For the past 50 years, humans had been causing problems in the galaxy. They expanded too fast. They asked too many questions. They built weapons that scared other species. They didn't follow the old rules that had kept peace for thousands of years. The charges against humanity are serious, Zethkri continued. Excessive aggression in territorial disputes. Reckless development of dangerous technologies. Most importantly, fundamental incompatibility with civilized norms. Sarah almost laughed at that last part. Civilized norms. That meant following rules made by species who had been around for millions of years. Rules that said you could only expand to one new star system every 100 years. Rules that said you couldn't develop weapons stronger than what already existed. Rules that said young species should stay quiet and learn from their elders. Humans had broken every single one of those rules. Humanity has 50 standard cycles to cease all interstellar activity, Zethkri said. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be abandoned. All human ships must return to Earth. Any human vessel found outside the Sol system after this deadline will be destroyed. The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered. Others made sounds that might have been relief. A few looked sad, but not many. Sarah noticed that the younger species in the gallery looked worried. They knew they might be next if they didn't behave. Sarah stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She was small compared to most of the aliens around her, but she felt their attention like a weight. "I thank the Council for their clarity," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Humanity accepts this decision. That caused more noise. The aliens had expected her to cry, to beg, to argue. Instead, she was calm, almost relieved. "We will comply with the timeline given," Sarah continued. 50 cycles is more than enough time. She gathered her papers and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "I hope the galaxy finds the peace it seeks," she said. Then she was gone. The aliens sat in confused silence. They had expected anger, desperation, maybe even threats. Instead, the human had thanked them and left like she was going to lunch. On Earth, President Martinez received Sarah's message within hours. He was sitting in the Oval Office with his top advisors when the encrypted signal came through. "It's done," Sarah's voice said through the speakers. The vote was 847 to 0. "We have 50 cycles. Any surprises?" asked General Thompson, the head of military operations. "None," Sarah replied. "They bought our act completely. They think we're devastated." President Martinez smiled grimly. "Activate Protocol 7. General Thompson nodded and picked up a secure phone. "All stations, this is command. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. Repeat, execute Protocol 7. Across human space, hidden facilities came to life. For 30 years, ever since joining the Galactic Council, humanity had been preparing for this day. They knew the older species would never accept them. Humans were too different, too aggressive, too fast. So they had made secret plans. Deep in the asteroid belt, massive shipyards that had been disguised as mining operations began revealing their true purpose. Gigantic ships, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, started powering up their engines. On distant colonies, families began packing. But they weren't sad or scared. They were excited. They had always known this day would come, and they were ready. In hidden laboratories, scientists activated machines the Council had never been told about. Weapons that could crack planets, shields that could stop stars, engines that could travel between galaxies. The galaxy had voted to banish humanity. They thought they were getting rid of a problem. What they didn't know was that they had just set humanity free. Sarah arrived back on Earth 3 days later. She found President Martinez in the Situation Room, watching status reports from across human space. "How are we doing?" she asked. Better than expected, Martinez replied. The fleet movements are ahead of schedule. The colony evacuations are proceeding smoothly, and the special projects are all green. Sarah looked at the big screen showing human space. Red dots marked worlds being evacuated. Blue dots showed fleets in motion. Green dots indicated completed evacuations. Any word from our friends? Sarah asked. Martinez smiled. The message went out yesterday. Our allies in the Andromeda Galaxy are preparing the welcome fleets. The sites we scouted beyond the galactic rim are ready for colonization. Sarah nodded. The galaxy thought they knew everything about humanity. They thought humans only lived in the colonies they could see. They were wrong. For 20 years, human ships had been secretly exploring beyond the galaxy's edge. They had found things out there. Amazing things. Ancient ruins. Empty worlds perfect for colonization. And most importantly, other species who didn't like the Galactic Council's rules either. What about the Council? Sarah asked. Any reaction yet? They're celebrating, General Thompson said. They think the dangerous humans are finally gone. They have no idea what's really happening. That was the beautiful part of the plan. The Council expected humans to leave slowly and sadly. Instead, they were leaving quickly and efficiently. By the time the Council realized something was wrong, humanity would be long gone and they would not be going alone. Sarah looked at the countdown timer on the wall. 47 cycles remaining. In less than 2 months, there would not be a single human left in Council space. But that was just the beginning. The galaxy had voted to banish Earth. They thought they were solving a problem. Instead, they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Humanity didn't wait to be asked twice. They were leaving, but they would be back. And when they returned, they would not be the same species that had been banished. They would be something the galaxy had never seen before. Something the Council should have been very afraid of. The evacuation began at dawn. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the most amazing sight of her life. Hundreds of ships stretched out in front of her, moving in perfect formation through space. These weren't the small colony ships the galaxy knew about. These were massive arc vessels, each one the size of a small moon. Status report, Elena called out. All ships are green across the board, her first officer replied. We have 3 million people in the convoy, plus equipment for establishing 50 new colonies. Elena nodded. 3 million people evacuated from the Kepler system in just 2 weeks. The galactic observers had expected it to take months, maybe years. They had no idea how efficient humans could be when they needed to move fast. Any word from the Council fleets? Elena asked. They're still 3 days behind us, the communications officer reported. They sent ships to make sure we're really leaving, but they can't keep up. Elena smiled. The Council ships were fast by their standards, but humans had been secretly developing new engine technology for decades. The ships carrying humanity to their new homes could outrun anything in the galaxy. Captain, the science officer called out. We're approaching the jump point. Elena looked at the star map. They were at the edge of Council space, about to enter the dark regions between spiral arms. The Council had never explored out here. They thought it was empty space with nothing worth having. They were wrong. All ships prepare for jump, Elena announced. Destination, Waypoint Alpha. The convoy disappeared in flashes of light, leaving empty space behind. 3 days later, the Council enforcement fleet arrived to find nothing. No ships, no debris, no trace that humans had ever been there. It was like 3 million people had simply vanished. Admiral Kethmore of the Council Navy stared at his sensors in confusion. Run another scan, he ordered. Sir, we've scanned 5 times, his sensor operator replied. There's nothing here. That's impossible, Admiral Kethmore said. 3 million humans don't just disappear, but they had. And they weren't the only ones. Across the galaxy, human colonies were emptying faster than anyone thought possible. The agricultural world of New Montana, which had taken 30 years to build, was completely evacuated in 10 days. The mining stations in the Vega system shut down and vanished overnight. The research outpost on Proxima Centauri b simply stopped responding to communications. The Council had expected the evacuation to be slow and painful. They thought humans would resist, argue, try to delay. Instead, it was like watching a magic trick. Humans were there one day and gone the next. On the planet Kepler 442b, Ambassador Zethkri stood in what used to be the human capital city. The buildings were empty but undamaged. The power was still on. There were even plants growing in the parks. They left everything, his aide observed. Why didn't they take their belongings? Zethkri walked through the empty streets. Because they didn't need them anymore. That was what worried him most. The humans hadn't acted like refugees fleeing their homes. They had acted like people moving to a better neighborhood. Back on Earth, the evacuation was nearly complete. The last transport ships were loading families, equipment, and supplies. But these weren't desperate refugees either. Children laughed as they boarded the ships. Parents talked excitedly about their new homes. It was more like a holiday than an exile. Final count? President Martinez asked General Thompson. 97% evacuation complete, the general replied. Only essential personnel remaining. Martinez nodded. In 6 weeks, they had moved almost 40 billion people and their entire civilization. The galaxy thought it was impossible. They were still trying to figure out how humans had done it. The secret was simple. Humans had been planning this evacuation for 30 years. Every colony had hidden shipyards. Every mining station had secret storage facilities. Every research outpost had been building things the council never knew about. When the evacuation order came, they were ready. Sir, an aide interrupted. We're receiving a message from Fleet Commander Chen. Put it through, Martinez said. The hologram of Commander Lisa Chen, Sarah's daughter, appeared in the room. She was calling from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. Mr. President, Lisa said, the advanced fleets have reached the target zones. Our new homes are even better than we hoped. Any problems? Martinez asked. None, sir. The locals are very welcoming. They're as tired of council rules as we were. Martinez smiled. The locals were species humanity had been secretly contacting for years. Civilizations that lived in the dark space between galaxies. Ancient races that had left the galaxy long ago. Young species that had never been invited to join the council. All of them were happy to welcome humanity to their part of the universe. What about the special projects? Martinez asked. Lisa's smile got bigger. The archaeological teams hit the jackpot, sir. We found intact architect sites. The technology is everything we hoped for and more. The architects were the galaxy's greatest mystery. An ancient race that had built impossible structures throughout the universe then vanished millions of years ago. The council had searched for architect sites for thousands of years and found almost nothing. Humans had found them in just 20 years of secret exploration. Estimated timeline for Phase 2? Martinez asked. Give us 200 years, sir. Maybe less if the new tech works as well as we think. Martinez nodded. Phase 2 was the long-term plan. Humanity wouldn't stay banished forever. They would return to the galaxy eventually. But when they came back, they would not be the same species that had been voted out. The last human ship left Earth orbit exactly 49 days after the council vote. President Martinez was on board, along with the final evacuation teams. As Earth fell away behind them, he looked back at the blue world that had been humanity's home for millions of years. Any regrets, sir? Asked his aide. Martinez shook his head. Earth was our cradle. But humanity has grown too big for cradles. The ship jumped to hyperspace following the path taken by billions of humans before them. Earth sat empty and quiet, waiting. The galaxy celebrated humanity's departure. Species that had feared human aggression felt safe again. The council congratulated itself on solving a difficult problem peacefully. They had no idea what they had actually done. In the dark space beyond the galactic rim, human fleets were already building new worlds. Ancient technologies were being awakened. New alliances were being formed. The galaxy had voted to banish Earth. Humanity had accepted their decision and left. But they hadn't gone far. And they weren't planning to stay away forever. The real story was just beginning. Admiral Maria Reyes stood on the observation deck of the UES Horizon's edge, staring at something that shouldn't exist. In front of her ship was a ring of metal and crystal so large that Earth could fit through it like a marble through a hoop. The ring spun slowly in space, generating its own gravity and atmosphere. How big is it? She asked her science officer. About 3 million kilometers in diameter, Dr. James Park replied, checking his instruments again. The mass readings are off the charts. This thing is bigger than most star systems. And it's abandoned? Completely. Has been for millions of years, but the power systems are still running. Admiral Reyes shook her head in amazement. This was their 15th architect site, and each one was more incredible than the last. The beings who built these structures had technology that made the Galactic Council's greatest achievements look like stone tools. Any luck with the language files? She asked. Dr. Park smiled. That's the amazing part. We cracked their computer systems yesterday. The architects called themselves the Builders. And Admiral, they left us a message. The hologram that appeared in front of them showed a being that looked almost human, but taller and more graceful. Its eyes held the wisdom of ages. Greetings, young ones, the hologram said in perfect English. If you are seeing this message, then you have reached the stars and begun to explore the greater universe. We have been waiting for you. Admiral Reyes felt a chill run down her spine. Waiting for us? The hologram continued. We are the Builders. Long ago, we created a network spanning all galaxies, connecting every intelligent species. But we made a mistake. We tried to control evolution, to force peace through rigid rules. The universe rejected our control and we were forced to leave. Dr. Park was frantically taking notes. Admiral, this changes everything we know about galactic history. Before departing, the Builder said, we left these sites for the species who would come after us, the ones brave enough to reject false peace in favor of true growth. We left them for humanity. The hologram smiled. You have shown the courage to be banished rather than controlled. You have chosen freedom over security. This marks you as worthy heirs to our legacy. The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. There are star maps, Dr. Park said quietly. Thousands of galaxies, all connected by their network. And Admiral, the network is still active. 2 years had passed since humanity's exodus from the galaxy. In that time, they had established colonies on hundreds of worlds in 3 different dwarf galaxies. The children born on these new worlds grew up under alien suns, learning that the Milky Way was just a small part of a much larger universe. On the world they called New Olympus, 12-year-old Marcus Chen played with his friends in forests that glowed blue at night. His great-grandmother had been the ambassador who faced the Council's judgment. His grandmother had led the fleets that found this place. Now he was part of the first generation to grow up truly free of galactic politics. Did you hear? His friend Lisa called out. My dad says the exploration teams found another builder site. This one has working starships, Marcus grinned. Cool. Maybe they'll let us see them when we're older. The children had no fear of the unknown. To them, discovering ancient alien technology was as normal as finding a new playground. They were growing up in a universe where anything was possible. Meanwhile, back in the Milky Way, the Galactic Council was starting to realize they might have made a mistake. It's been 2 years, Ambassador Zethkri said to the emergency session. We should have detected some trace of human activity by now. Where did they go? The Council's best scientists had been searching for humanity since the Exodus began. Long-range sensors found nothing. Scout ships discovered no new colonies. It was like 40 billion humans had simply vanished from the universe. Perhaps they went dormant, suggested Ambassador Veltar of the Crystalline Collective. Reduce their activities to avoid detection. 40 billion people can't just hide, Zethkri replied. They need food, energy, raw materials. There should be evidence. What the Council didn't know was that humanity was indeed active, just not in any place they thought to look. Human fleets were exploring galaxies millions of light years away. Human colonies were thriving on worlds that orbited stars the Council couldn't see without their most powerful telescopes, and humanity was no longer alone. The first contact with the Forthak Empire happened by accident. A human exploration ship detected massive energy signatures in the Andromeda Galaxy and went to investigate. What they found was a space battle between 2 fleets of silicon-based beings. Captain Torres of the UES Discovery watched the battle through his view screen. One fleet was clearly losing, their ships damaged and outnumbered. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a distress signal. The smaller fleet is asking for help. Can we understand them? The AI is working on it. Basic translation coming through now. They're saying, death to tyrants, freedom or void. Captain Torres smiled. Those were words humans could understand. All weapons online, he ordered. Let's even the odds. The human ship appeared on the edge of the battle like a ghost materializing in space. Its weapons were based on builder technology, far more advanced than anything either alien fleet possessed. Within minutes, the larger fleet was retreating, leaving the damaged ships behind. The grateful aliens turned out to be rebels fighting against an empire that sounded very much like the Galactic Council. Rigid rules, ancient traditions, no tolerance for change or innovation. We have fought this war for 1,000 years, the Vorthok commander explained through the translation system. The Empire demands obedience. We demand freedom. We know something about that, Captain Torres replied. That first contact led to others. Throughout the local galactic cluster, humanity discovered species that had rejected authoritarian rule. Some had been banished like humans. Others had chosen exile. A few had fought wars to escape control. All of them were interested in the technologies humanity had found in the builder sites. Dr. Park, now leading the archaeological efforts, made breakthrough after breakthrough. Builder matter compilers could create anything from raw atoms. Builder computers could model entire galaxies. Builder engines could travel between stars in days instead of years. But the most amazing discovery was the Great Web itself. It's not just a communication network, Dr. Park explained to Admiral Reyes. It's a transportation system. The builders created tunnels through space-time that connect every galaxy they explored. How many galaxies? Admiral Reyes asked. Based on the maps we found? Over 10,000. And the network is still active. Admiral Reyes stared at the holographic display showing the web, lines, of light-connected points of light in a pattern too complex to fully understand. So we could travel to any of these galaxies? In theory, yes. The builders left instructions. They wanted their network to be used by whoever came after them. Admiral Reyes made a decision that would change the course of human history. Start reaching out, she ordered. Find out who's out there. Find out who wants to be free. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of species across hundreds of galaxies were tired of living under systems like the Galactic Council. They wanted to explore, to grow, to be free to make their own choices. Humanity became the ambassadors for a new kind of civilization, not one based on control and rigid rules, but on freedom and voluntary cooperation. The Intergalactic Consortium was born. Back in the Milky Way, the Galactic Council continued their search for humanity. They had no idea that while they were looking for a banished species, humans were building an empire that spanned the universe. But they would find out soon enough. Humanity's exile was almost over. The real adventure was just beginning. 200 years had passed since humanity's banishment from the galaxy. The Galactic Council had long stopped looking for them. The older species occasionally told stories about the aggressive humans who had been exiled long ago. But to most of the galaxy, humanity was just a footnote in history. That changed on a Tuesday morning, when every sensor array in the galaxy detected the same impossible reading. Sir, the sensor operator called, out from his station aboard the Council monitoring ship Eternal Watch. I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim. Captain Vorash looked at the displays and felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. The energy readings were off the charts. Whatever was coming was bigger than anything in the Council's records. How many contacts? He asked. That's just it, sir. I can't tell. The signatures are so large they're overlapping. It could be dozens of ships or something else entirely. Captain Vorash opened a channel to Council headquarters. This is Eternal Watch. We have unknown contacts approaching from the rim, requesting immediate backup. The response came back quickly. Backup is already en route. Maintain position and observe. Do not engage. 3 hours later, the Council's fastest ships arrived to find Captain Vorash and his crew staring at something that defied every law of physics they knew. The ships that emerged from the dark between galaxies were enormous. The smallest were the size of moons. The largest could have swallowed entire star systems. They moved without any visible propulsion, traveling faster than light without entering hyperspace, and they weren't alone. Admiral Chental of the Council Navy watched through her flagship's view screen as the impossible fleet came into view. Alongside the giant ships were vessels of designs she had never seen before. Some looked like living creatures made of metal and crystal. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Ma'am, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission. It's an ancient Council standard. Put it through, Admiral Chental ordered. The view screen lit up with the image of a human face. But this wasn't like the humans the Council remembered. This one's eyes held the depth of centuries. Their skin had a faint metallic sheen. When they spoke, their voice carried harmonics that suggested their vocal cords had been enhanced. Greetings, Galactic Council, the human said. I am Commander Liu Jiang of the Intergalactic Consortium. We request permission to enter council space for diplomatic purposes. Admiral Chen Tal felt her mouth go dry. Intergalactic Consortium. Yes, we represent a coalition of species from 17 galaxies. We come in peace, seeking dialogue with our old neighbors. The Admiral tried to process what she was hearing. 17 galaxies? The Council barely controlled one spiral arm of their own galaxy. You're human? She managed to ask. Commander Liu smiled, and when she did, her teeth glinted like starlight. I am descended from humans, yes. My great-great-grandmother was among those your council chose to exile 200 years ago. The weight of those words hit the council fleet like a physical blow. The humans hadn't died out or faded away. They had thrived. They had grown. They had built something the council couldn't even imagine. We have much to discuss, Commander Liu continued. May we proceed to council space? Admiral Chen Tal looked at the massive fleet surrounding her ships. Her most powerful weapons wouldn't even scratch the paint on the smallest of the alien vessels. Permission granted, she said quietly. Word of the fleet's arrival spread through the galaxy faster than light. Emergency sessions were called on every council world. Ancient protocols were dusted off and studied. No one knew how to handle first contact with a civilization that dwarfed their own. On the council homeworld, Ambassador Zethkri stood in the same chamber where humanity had been banished 2 centuries before. But now that chamber was surrounded by ships that blotted out the stars. The beings that entered the chamber were a mix of species the council had never seen before. Some looked like the humans of old but enhanced and changed. Others were clearly alien but moved with the confidence of equals. At their head walked Commander Liu Zhang. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair and those strange, deep eyes. When she spoke, her voice filled the chamber without effort. Honored council members, she began. I bring greetings from the Intergalactic Consortium. We come to invite you to join something greater than any single galaxy. The chamber erupted in noise. Thousands of alien voices rose in confusion, fear, and anger. How dare these exiles return and speak of inviting the council to join anything? Zethkri called for order. Commander Zhang, he said, your people were banished from this galaxy. By what right do you return? Liu's smile was patient, like a teacher dealing with a difficult student. Ambassador Zethkri, you banished a single species from a small portion of one galaxy. We've spent 2 centuries exploring the universe beyond your borders. We've discovered that the galaxy you control is like a small island in an infinite ocean. She gestured, and a hologram filled the chamber. It showed the Milky Way galaxy, but now it was just one small light among thousands of others. Lines connected the galaxies like a vast web. This is the real universe, Liu said. The builders created a network linking every galaxy they explored. For millions of years, that network lay dormant. We have awakened it. The council members stared at the display in stunned silence. Their entire civilization, everything they had built over millions of years, was just a tiny speck in the hologram. The consortium includes over 10,000 species from 17 galaxies. Liu continued. We've learned to travel between stars in days, not years. We've mastered technologies that can reshape matter at the atomic level. We've even learned to communicate with energy beings from dimensions beyond normal space. She paused to let that sink in. And we're here to invite you to join us. Join you? Zethkri sputtered. You were exiled, banished. How dare you return and act as if you're our equals? Liu's expression didn't change. Ambassador, we're not your equals. We're far beyond that now. But we remember where we came from. Many of us still have family ties to this galaxy. We don't want to see you left behind as the universe moves forward. The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived their exile. They had used it to become something incredible. What would joining this consortium mean? Asked Ambassador Veltar. Freedom, Liu replied simply. Freedom to explore any galaxy you choose. Freedom to develop any technology you can imagine. Freedom from the artificial limits your council has imposed for millions of years. She gestured again, and the hologram showed ships traveling between galaxies and flashes of light. Worlds being built from raw matter, species working together on projects that spanned star systems. The universe is vast and full of wonders, Liu said. Why limit yourselves to one small corner of it? Some of the younger council members leaned forward with interest. But the older species looked angry and afraid. These are dangerous ideas, Zethkri declared. The council's rules have maintained peace for millions of years. Your human chaos would destroy everything we've built. Lou nodded as if she had expected this response. Ambassador, your peace is the peace of stagnation. Nothing grows. Nothing changes. Nothing improves. Is that really the legacy you want to leave? She turned to address the chamber as a whole. The invitation stands open to any species that chooses to accept it. Individual worlds, star systems, or entire species may join the consortium at any time. We don't require unanimous consent. That caused another uproar. The idea that individual members could leave the council was revolutionary. We'll be establishing an embassy on the edge of council space, Lou announced. Any who wish to learn more about the consortium are welcome to visit. We'll also be sharing some basic technologies as a gesture of goodwill. The basic technologies turned out to be medical treatments that could extend lifespans by thousands of years, matter compilers that could end scarcity forever, and communication systems that worked instantly across galactic distances. Within months, younger species were lining up to join the consortium. The older species tried to stop them, but found they had no power to do so. The humans had returned with friends, and those friends had made it clear that the Council's authority ended at their own borders. The galaxy would never be the same. The question now was whether the Council would adapt to the new reality or be left behind as the universe moved on without them. Humanity had kept their promise. They had returned. But they hadn't come back as supplicants or refugees. They had come back as the leaders of something greater than the Council had ever dreamed possible. The exile was over. The real story was just beginning. The massive council chamber had not changed much in 200 years. The same curved walls rose toward the crystal dome ceiling. The same floating platforms held delegates from across the galaxy. But today something was very different. Outside the transparent walls, ships floated in space that made no sense. Dr. Marcus Chen walked slowly toward the center platform. His steps echoed in the silent chamber. Behind him came beings that most council members had only heard about in old stories. A Vorthak warrior, its crystalline body catching the light like living diamond. An ethereal, its energy form barely contained in a shimmering field suit. An architect descendant, ancient beyond measure, its mechanical form humming with power. Marcus reached the speaking platform and looked up at the thousands of delegates. Many stared at him with fear, others with curiosity, a few with something that might have been hope. 200 years ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. My ancestors stood in this same spot. Ambassador Sarah Chen listened as you voted to throw humanity out of your galaxy. You called us dangerous. You said we did not belong, he paused, letting his words sink in. The hegemony delegate, descendant of the one who had announced the original vote, shifted uncomfortably on his platform. You were right, Marcus continued. We were dangerous. We did not belong, but not for the reasons you thought. A holographic display appeared above the center of the chamber. It showed the Milky Way galaxy slowly rotating. Then the view pulled back. Another galaxy appeared, then another. Soon hundreds of galaxies filled the display, connected by bright lines of light. This is what we found when you sent us away, Marcus said. Not empty space. Not death. We found the universe. The display zoomed in on one of the connecting lines. Ships moved along it. Vessels from dozens of different species. Trade routes. Communication networks. Entire civilizations working together across impossible distances. The architect descendants taught us about the Great Web, Marcus explained. A network that connects every galaxy in our local cluster. It has existed for millions of years. Your ancestors knew about it once, but they chose to ignore it. They decided your galaxy was enough. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Altarian delegate raised a tentacle. You speak of myths and legends. These architects are stories we tell children. The mechanical being behind Marcus stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was like distant thunder. I am keeper of memory eternal. I was built before your species learned to make fire. I remember when your ancestors first reached the stars. They were invited to join the web then. They refused. Silence fell over the chamber. The weight of that ancient presence was undeniable. Marcus continued. Humanity spent 200 years learning what you forgot. We met species that make your greatest warriors look weak. We found civilizations that solve problems you think are impossible. We learned technologies that would seem like magic to you. The display changed again. It showed human worlds now, but not the small colonies the Council remembered. These were massive structures, ring worlds around distant stars, artificial planets the size of gas giants, space habitats that could hold billions of people. We built all of this in 2 centuries, Marcus said. Do you know why? Because we were not alone. Because we learned to work with beings you would never accept. Because we were willing to change. A young delegate from the Centauri Republic stood up. Her species had joined the council only 50 years ago. What are you offering us? She asked. Marcus smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not entirely kind either. We are offering you a choice. The same choice your ancestors had millions of years ago. The holographic display changed once more. Now it showed the intergalactic consortium in all its glory. Thousands of species, hundreds of member civilizations, trade networks that spanned multiple galaxies, scientific achievements that dwarfed anything the Council had ever accomplished. Join the consortium, Marcus said. Learn to think beyond one small galaxy. Work with species that will challenge everything you believe about what is possible. Grow into something greater than you ever imagined. The hegemony delegate's voice was sharp with anger. And if we refuse? Will you conquer us? Force us to submit? Marcus looked genuinely surprised. Conquer you? Why would we do that? You have nothing we need. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your resources are tiny compared to what we can access through the web. Your military could not threaten a single one of our patrol fleets. The words were not spoken with cruelty, but they hit like physical blows. The Council had spent 200 years believing they were the most advanced civilization in the universe. Now they learned they were barely noticed by their former outcasts. We do not want to rule you, Marcus continued. We want to invite you to grow. But only if you choose it. Only if you are ready to let go of the old ways. An older delegate from the core world spoke up. His species had been part of the Council for thousands of years. What would membership require? Everything, the ethereal behind Marcus said. Its voice was like wind through crystal. Your old laws that limit exploration. Your rules that prevent genetic enhancement. Your fear of artificial intelligence. Your belief that some knowledge is too dangerous to seek. All of it must go. The chamber erupted in worried voices. Delegates argued with each other across the platforms. Some demanded more information. Others rejected the offer immediately. A few asked quiet questions about the application process. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. We will not force this decision on you, he said. But we will not wait forever either. The universe is vast. There are thousands of other species ready to join us. Species that are not afraid of change. He gestured toward the viewing walls. Outside, the impossible ships of the consortium waited. We came back to offer this invitation because humanity remembers where we came from. Because some of us still have family here. Because we believe even the most conservative societies can learn to grow. The display showed Earth now. Not the empty world the Council expected, but a thriving planet. Cities that stretched into the clouds. Oceans that sparkled with orbital habitats. A world that had become the heart of something magnificent. Earth is no longer just human, Marcus said. It is home to representatives from 17 galaxies. Children of 100 species learn together in our schools. Scientists from civilizations you cannot imagine work side by side in our laboratories. Earth became what your galaxy could become. He paused, looking around the chamber one last time. You voted to banish us because you thought we were too dangerous for your peaceful galaxy. You were afraid we would change things. You were right to be afraid. We did change things. Just not here. Marcus began walking back toward the exit. His alien companions followed. The quantum communicators we left at your embassy will allow instant contact across any distance. When you are ready to talk, we will listen. When you are ready to change, we will help. When you are ready to join the larger universe, we will welcome you. At the chamber entrance, he turned back one final time. But understand this clearly. The invitation is not forever. The universe moves forward with or without you. Choose wisely. The delegates watched as the humans and their allies left the chamber. Outside, the consortium ships began to fade away, using technology the Council could not understand. Within hours, they were gone, leaving only the quantum communicators as proof they had ever been there. In the days that followed, the galaxy would split into 2 camps, those who wanted to accept the invitation, and those who preferred the old ways. The choice would define the next age of galactic civilization. But for now, the chamber sat in stunned silence, processing the reality that their former outcasts had become something far greater than anyone had imagined possible.